welcome to the latest edition to my The Truth About series, where we discuss everything you need to know about some of the most exclusive luxury brands out there. Now, today's video is going to be quite different because unlike in previous videos where I really try to highlight more mysterious luxury brands, today we are diving into one of the best known, most valuable luxury brands out there. You'll probably know from the title, Louis Vuitton. Now, Louis Vuitton is a brand that I'm sure most of you have heard of. I think it is a brand that is most people's gateway into the world of luxury, but just because a lot of people are doing something, that doesn't necessarily make it the right choice. So I really wanted to do some digging over the past few weeks to discover some lesser known facts about the brand, also gather my own thoughts and experience with some of their pieces, and speak to some of my friends who are a lot more seriously invested in Louis Vuitton than I am. So I can bring to you some pieces of information that you might not know of, because I am someone who has seriously cut back on my luxury shopping. I'm a lot more intentional with my purchases. So I want to make sure that if you're going to be spending your hard-earned money on Louis Vuitton, you know everything that there is to know about this unbelievably iconic brand. They are iconic for a reason, but are they still worth the hype? What is still worth buying from Louis Vuitton in 2025? Of course, we'll discuss everything you need to know about the brand, from their heritage and history, through their craftsmanship, all the way to their current offering. And I'll share with you what pieces I would personally invest in and which ones I would skip in 2025 and also going into 2026. So I hope this is going to be a fun video for you to watch. Now, today is the last piece of the puzzle. The reason I'm sitting here is because I'm just getting ready to head to Louis Vuitton to look at some pieces that I've seen before, but I want to have one last look at them, take some close-up pictures and videos for you. So if you're considering them, you get a more well-rounded idea for what they can do for you and for your collection mainly. So I wanted to show you quickly what I'm wearing, and I also have some new bags to introduce you to in today's video. But I'm just coming home from class and I'm going to head to Louis Vuitton, but right from Louis Vuitton, I have to go to the hairdresser, and I don't want to wear something with so many colors because it will just be in the way of my hair getting cut and washed. But before I take this outfit off, it's something that I really wanted to show you because it is such a simple yet sophisticated outfit. It is made up of really simple core pieces that I'm pretty sure most of you will have in your wardrobe. Yet when you combine them together, I think they create such an elegant and timeless look. So let me stand up and show you this really quick. I'm not sure how much you're actually going to be able to see because it's suddenly gone so dark outside, but I feel like you'll get the general idea. This outfit is not about details, it's more of a template that you can just fill in with pieces that you already have in your collection. But if you're interested in the specifics, I'm pretty sure I talked about each and every single piece in my last video, which was titled The Best Wardrobe Investments for Fall, or something along those lines. I can make sure to have that video linked up here for you. But I threw on one of my favorite high-waisted baggy jeans, my new belt from an American brand. I have on my most beloved second skin knit, which I think is a blend of cashmere and spandex. And then today I opted for a really heavy white shirt, which kind of reminds me of a lab coat or a scrub. So it was kind of appropriate for class. And this was really it, and I helped elevate this outfit with the most incredible bag, which I think you'll be quite excited to see. Without a doubt, the crown jewel of today's outfit is this new bowling bag, which I recently got from Songmod, and this portion of today's video is kindly being sponsored by the brand. Now, this is my second time that I'm working with Songmod this year, which I am so unbelievably grateful for because it is a brand that just really ticks all the boxes, as I told you at the beginning of this video, and it's something that you have certainly noticed. If you've been with me for a while, I have really cut back on my luxury consumption, and I really tried to be more intentional with my purchases, and Songmod is a brand that just works for me, my wardrobe, my aesthetic, and my lifestyle, because they are committed to thoughtful designs, using only the finest materials, and highlighting and emphasizing exquisite craftsmanship and meticulous attention to detail. Now, Songmod actually has a small dedicated group of, as they call them, grandma artisans with an average age of 65. And I just love the fact that this generation that is so often overlooked and underestimated is not only employed by Songmod, but they are actually embraced and appreciated. I mean, just think about the fact that these people have decades of experience under their belt that they can pour into every single creation that the brand offers. And it's something that you can really tell when you look at these bags. I think it's really obvious that these are designed by someone who actually uses these bags, because every single detail is so well thought out, but also the attention to details when it comes to the craftsmanship and the selection of materials. You can tell that it's not their first rodeo. Now, I picked up two bags this time. This is a larger tote bag, which is actually called the Yori bowling bag. It has the iconic Yori phone case on the front, and it is just an incredible workhorse bag. It kind of reminds me of the shape of the India tote bag from the Row, but in a much more practical and much more accessible, at a much more accessible price point, I should say. But you're really not sacrificing on quality, because this full grained pebbled leather is one of the softest, most buttery, most exquisite leathers I have ever felt. It definitely can be mentioned on the same page with leathers used by the Row, and dare I say, maybe even Hermès. I am really blown away by this creation. And even though it is quite a large bowling bag, which by the way does come in 3 different sizes, the reason it does not look or feel overwhelming is because the handles are so elegant and so sophisticated. They are quite short, so it's not something that you could carry over your shoulder or under your arm, but they look incredibly elegant handheld. And you do also get a thicker canvas shoulder strap for a more casual, whimsical look. It does fit a 15-inch Mac and all your daily essentials. So if you're looking for a daily tote bag that is really refined and sophisticated, not overwhelming, but is guaranteed to fit all your essentials in the most sophisticated way, this would be an incredible bag for you to look into. And then I also got a bag that could not be any different from this, but it is a bag that I genuinely think every single person out there would have a place for in their collections. If there is one thing in this video to put on your radar, this upcoming bag is the one, because for the price, the quality, the look, the feel, what this bag will add to your collection, there is no excuse. Please have a look at it for yourself. I mean, the way this bag feels, you would think it costs 10 times the price, and also the way it looks, I think this would be an incredible, really minimalist, stripped down alternative to something like a mini Lindy, even a much better alternative to the Row banana bag, or even, it does kind of also remind me of the Louis Vuitton puzzle bag. It basically takes the best of all these incredibly popular it bags and merges it into one in the most refined, simple, clean and sophisticated fashion, which is the mini drippy roof bag. And the reason it's called the mini drippy roof is because of the inspiration behind this bag. This shape is actually inspired by the roof of ancient Chinese buildings, which you know how much I love architecture, but this bag is just exquisite. There isn't a single detail that I don't love about this bag. It is offered in 3 different sizes. I opted for the mini one, which measures just about 20 centimeters. And it comes with this adjustable shoulder strap, which honestly, I have been wearing this bag nonstop anytime I'm not going to school or to the gym, and I don't have a need for a larger tote bag. Essentially, if I'm not carrying my laptop with me, this is the bag that I have been reaching for, because it is so incredibly just fun, but it also goes with anything. It comes in a huge range of colors in the most beautiful, delicious, buttery grain skin. I opted for the color taupe with, again, contrast stitching, which is just honestly flawless. You do have little feet on the bottom of the bag, and you have a magnetic closure. Even though it is quite a small bag, it will fit all your daily essentials. I am by no means telling you what to spend your money on, but this is a bag that I really don't think, if you love a beautifully crafted, incredibly user-friendly bag, you would be disappointed in. It is one of my best acquisitions in the year of 2025. So this is the bag that I'm going to be carrying today. And this is my really casual running errands outfit. But again, the pièce de résistance is, of course, the drippy roof mini bag. But I actually decided to keep the same baggy jeans on. I put on my favorite Skims hoodie, which is just heavenly soft. It's so cozy. It honestly feels like wearing PJs outside. And then I have on this, it's a genuine leather jacket with a full shearling lining, which is, again, just super cozy for a day filled with errands. I have to be honest, I'm not feeling 100%. So I'm gonna go get as much filming done as I possibly can at Louis Vuitton, get my hair cut, and then take it really easy in the afternoon. And then I'll see you back here tomorrow, diving into everything you need to know about Louis Vuitton. Most importantly, what is still worth buying in 2025. And if you are a fellow fashion geek, I think you will really enjoy discussing all the nitty-gritty details behind the history and heritage of how Louis Vuitton really began. If there's one logo that defines luxury, this is the one, the iconic Louis Vuitton monogram. It's instantly recognizable and it conveys everything from opulence through aspiration all the way to luxury. And the house behind it, Louis Vuitton, has grown into one of the most powerful and most valuable luxury brands out there. It pretty much dominates not only fashion but also culture itself, which is an accomplishment that the humble trunk maker from 19th century Paris who started the brand could probably never even dream of, because his legacy began in 1854 when Louis Vuitton opened his first workshop in Paris. At the time, travel was booming among Europe's elite, but luggages were bulky, impractical, and often got ruined on long journeys. But Louis Vuitton had a very simple yet ingenious solution. And looking at it now, you might be thinking, duh, how could people not see it before? But Louis Vuitton was the first trunk maker to invent a flat top trunk. Yes, that is the key to his success. He was the first trunk maker to create a trunk with a completely flat top, which meant that these luggages were more lightweight, they were stackable, and they were made of durable, water-repellent canvas with an airtight structure. So it's not like that they were just flat. Of course, there was a lot more to it. The structure, the craftsmanship, the fact that they could be perfectly sealed also made them unique, but it was really the fact that they were the first to feature a flat top that made them a lot easier and a lot more seamless to use. And it also meant that you could stack multiple trunks on top of each other, so the likelihood of them getting ruined on a long journey was a lot smaller. Of course, you will be familiar with the Louis Vuitton monogram. However, you might not know that it wasn't just a design choice to put the Louis Vuitton monogram on the canvas that their trunks were wrapped in, but it also served a purpose. It was invented to fight counterfeits, which is kind of ironic considering that this Louis Vuitton monogram has become one of the most duped, most often replicated pieces of luxury or ideas in luxury. I feel like the most fakes that are floating around out there are fakes of Louis Vuitton pieces with this iconic monogram, but it wasn't the first pattern that Louis Vuitton invented. Before the Louis Vuitton Monogram came the Damier canvas, which was introduced actually 8 years earlier in 1888 as Louis Vuitton's first real attempt to fight counterfeiting. And then in 1896, Louis' son Georges Vuitton introduced the iconic Louis Vuitton Monogram, not just as a design choice, but Georges really wanted to create something that was too complicated to copy, but also paid tribute to his father's legacy. Interesting fact, Louis Vuitton created this little building beside his workshop so he could always stay close to his craft, which is where Louis Vuitton trunks are made to this day. So if you pick up a Louis Vuitton trunk today, it is still made in that very same workshop. And the Louis Vuitton family still contributes to the Maison. The house is of course no longer owned by the family of Louis Vuitton, but they are still very closely linked to the Maison because some of Louis Vuitton's descendants still work for the brand at that very same workshop that is crafting trunks to this day. But the brand at this point is of course owned by LVMH. The brand was acquired in the 1980s by a businessman named Bernard Arnault, who had a vision to create a luxury empire, and he merged Louis Vuitton with Moet Hennessy, which is where the name LVMH comes from. LVMH is of course the largest luxury conglomerate, and under Bernard Arnault's leadership, Louis Vuitton has grown into a true cultural phenomena and just one of the most powerful and most valuable brands in the world. I really don't think that there is a single luxury house out there whose creative director has as much influence as Louis Vuitton's does. I feel like every single era in Louis Vuitton's history redefined what luxury could mean for a new generation. And while at times the brand has made some unexpected and certainly risky choices, it has definitely paid off, literally, because Louis Vuitton for years has remained the most valuable luxury brand, and it is currently valued at over $40 billion in 2025. But with global fame comes controversy. In recent years, Louis Vuitton has been criticized for becoming too loud and commercial, with lines out the door and monogram everywhere you turn. And I have to be honest, this is a criticism that has also come from me, but Louis Vuitton argues that they try to protect this sort of aura of luxury by offering highly exclusive limited edition pieces, culturally relevant collaborations, and not sacrificing quality when it comes to their more premium pieces, which are the ones we'll be focusing on in today's video. But before we move into talking about Louis Vuitton's top tier creations, some of their lesser known pieces, I thought I would really quickly share with you my thoughts on their top selling bags, starting with the piece that most people know and love Louis Vuitton for. It is a bag that was launched, I believe, in 2007, which is the Neverfull. Now, it is a bag that was initially criticized for being too simple for a luxury bag. It quietly became one of Louis Vuitton's best-selling pieces, and there are two very simple reasons for that. Number one, it is a lot more accessible than other Louis Vuitton pieces because of the price point, and it is highly practical. There really isn't a single person out there who could not take advantage of such a simple tote bag design, but I do think that this bag has become incredibly overdone and kind of cheap looking. Yes, it is inexpensive compared to other Louis Vuitton pieces, but it also looks cheap in my opinion. I think if you are going to pick up a tote bag from Louis Vuitton at this point, you're much better off spending your money on something like one of their low-key pieces. They have this new range called the low-key collection, which features there are several different bags within this collection, but if you're looking for a tote bag, they have a new bag that I do think is slightly reminiscent of the Margot, but with a zip closure, and it is a lot more lightweight, which could be a great alternative. And then they also do a really simple leather tote bag, which I think would add a lot more value to your collection. Now, the next bag has been around a lot longer than the Louis Vuitton Neverfull. It is actually inspired by the Express travel bag. It was essentially shrunken and turned into an, at this point, iconic Louis Vuitton bag, which is called the Speedy. If I'm not mistaken, this is a style that was introduced in the 1930s, initially exclusively available in canvas, but now it's also available in some leather options, which I really enjoy. It comes in a plethora of different sizes and finishes. As I mentioned, it also comes in leather, which I have to be honest with you, I am partial to this shape from Louis Vuitton. If you're looking for a great, easy grab and go everyday city bag, if you don't need a huge bag, this is an unbelievable shape to have in your collection, but I would personally suggest picking this bag up in leather over canvas. At one point, this bag was also offered in epi leather, which is one of the most hard wearing leathers out there. And then last but not least, let's move on to my favorite piece from Louis Vuitton. It's not a bag that I would personally add to my collection because for me it is a little bit too feminine, but it has a really interesting history, and similar to the Speedy, it is just a timeless creation. So much so that it was actually designed for one of the most iconic figures in fashion, Coco Chanel, which is the Louis Vuitton Alma. It's a bag that was designed for Coco Chanel personally in 1925, and she allowed it to go up for public sale in the 1930s. And it is a perfectly structured architectural kind of art deco silhouette that, in my opinion, is Louis Vuitton's most timeless design. It's discreet, it's elegant, yet it's unbelievably luxurious. At this point, it's exclusively available in either leather or in canvas. You can find it not only in the Damier canvas, but also in the Monogram. They also do seasonal drops of this bag with artist creations and different collaborations, but personally I think this bag is just such an understated staple to have in your collection, especially if you can find it in leather. I would say that the Alma is my favorite more formal bag from Louis Vuitton, although it's not so formal, but it's definitely a little bit more elegant. But if you're looking for something really user-friendly, easy and effortless, you cannot go wrong with a leather Speedy. But the Neverfull is really not a bag that I would suggest for anyone to ever buy. Louis Vuitton is one of the most comprehensive, all-encompassing luxury lifestyle brands out there. I could probably sit here all day going through their catalog of pieces, sharing my thoughts, which we actually could do at one point if you would like me to do maybe a ranking video and rank every single bag from Louis Vuitton that is currently available. Let me know in the comment section, or give this video a thumbs up just so I know that it's something that you would be interested in seeing from me. But today we don't have time for that. So what I thought we could do instead is I could share with you some of the most noteworthy stand-up pieces, some lesser known creations, and also ones that you might have heard of, but I feel like need a little bit more information, starting with trunks. As I mentioned, Louis Vuitton to this day still offers some of the most exquisite trunks, not only for traveling, because I feel like very few people at this point would want to travel with trunks, but they also do different iterations of it. And I do think that if you're going to invest in a trunk, your best bet is to go for the classic Louis Vuitton trunk, which is called the Courrier Lausanne in 110 centimeters. I don't want to go into too much detail here because I did a shopping vlog, I want to say in July, where I went to Louis Vuitton to specifically look at trunks and different coffres and jewelry boxes. So if you're interested in seeing these pieces up close and personal, hear my thoughts, hear about prices and the whole process of getting your hands on a trunk, I will make sure to have that video linked up here for you. Long story short, I was going back and forth thinking about getting myself a little jewelry box trunk for my birthday, but I decided to save my money and get an actual large trunk instead, which is 4 times as much money, but at the same time, it makes at least 4 times as much of a statement. And if I was to get this trunk, I would probably get it in 110 centimeters and use it as a bench in front of my bed. It is a large investment, but you'll get the most bang for your buck by going for the 110 centimeter courier trunks, which you can buy in a ton of different finishes, in a ton of different canvas options, and you can also have them custom made, which is not going to cost you anymore. You just have to pay the base price of the primary material that you choose, and you can expect it to take about 6 months to be delivered. But of course, they have plenty of trunks that are readily available. And while we are on the topic of traveling, I do really like the Capucines. I think very few brands do duffel bags, which that's what the Capucines is. It is a duffel bag as well as Louis Vuitton. But again, I would just not get one of these bags in the Louis Vuitton Monogram. Yes, they're going to be really durable and unbelievably lightweight. I still prefer the Capucines in leather. It is a style that's been around since the 1930s. And it is a quintessential luxury travel bag. It is spacious, it is light, it is beloved, but I do think that it is just a little bit too loud in the Monogram canvas at this point. But there is no doubt it is a pure representation of Louis Vuitton's travel heritage, and it is a heritage piece. But if I was to buy this bag, I would probably get it in leather. And I do think that it would make a great alternative to the P9, the Speedy P9, which actually the Capucines was a precursor to the Speedy. And then, of course, the P9 kind of merges the Capucines with the Speedy. It basically combines the best of both worlds, which is a bag that we'll definitely talk about later on in today's video. Long story short, I love the Capucines. It comes in a huge range of different sizes. I think it starts at 45 centimeters and it goes up to 60. It's timeless, it's iconic, it's instantly recognizable, which in my opinion is the downfall of this bag. But thankfully, you can get this bag in full leather, which I think makes for a true investment that you have in your collection for a lifetime. And before moving on to some of Louis Vuitton's most exclusive bags, I quickly wanted to share with you some of my personal favorites, because there was a point in time I lived in Louis Vuitton tailoring. I was a huge fan of Kim Jones's creative direction at Louis Vuitton when he was designing their men's collection. I used to love Louis Vuitton tailoring, and those are pieces that you've definitely seen me in. And to this day, I really enjoy Louis Vuitton tailoring. It's not something that I buy too often. I actually prefer their women's tailoring to their men's tailoring at this point. Sadly, their ready-to-wear has become a little bit too obnoxiously loud and on the nose for me, including one of their most popular pieces, which is their hooded wrap coat that is reversible. So on the inside, it is plastered in the Louis Vuitton monogram, and because it has this huge hood, it is something that is quite obvious and in your face. I think it is the piece that keeps the lights on at Louis Vuitton during the holiday season, because it is unbelievably popular and there are several different iterations of it. It's just a piece that I don't really enjoy or like the look of. It is a women's piece. It's not something that I would buy for myself, but I would not suggest that anyone buys it. Louis Vuitton has some incredible cashmere and wool coats, but this is not one that I would want to put on your radar. But I do love their tailoring and their pieces that are not drenched in Louis Vuitton monogram, which is few and far between. But I also really enjoy some of their accessories. One of my most used pieces of luxury, even though it's something I've only had in my collection for a handful of years, is the Louis Vuitton key pouch, which is this tiny little card holder that is attached to a keychain. And what I love about this piece, well, the idea is that you could tuck your keys into that little pouch, which I actually think is a great invention if you love smaller bags, or if you have bags that are a little bit more delicate on the inside. Here I'm thinking about things like the Mini Kelly, the Kelly Pochette, or even exotic creations. It's great that you can tuck a sharp key into this soft pouch, but what I tend to do with this is I will keep things like my ID, a couple of credit cards, loyalty cards, and things like a lip balm, or things I always want to have on me, in that little pouch. And I don't really tuck my keys in there, but that is an incredible, quite accessible piece to buy for yourself or buy for someone else as a holiday gift, if you're already thinking holiday gifting. And they do them in a ton of different finishes and colors, but I actually love mine in the Louis Vuitton Monogram, and it is a testament to how hard wearing and durable that Louis Vuitton canvas is, which is coated canvas. And with that, let's go from the accessible to the highly inaccessible, some of Louis Vuitton's most exclusive creations. And let's start with one that I feel like is quite well known at this point. At least it is a piece that I have been going on and on about for years, which is the Capucine. Now, the Capucine was at one point seen as Louis Vuitton's most exclusive bag creation, but over the years it has become a little bit more widely known and widely available. It is a great alternative to something like a Birkin or a Kelly if you are trying to find a more sort of subdued, low-key alternative, and something that's also a little bit easier to find than one of those bags. And I'm not saying that anything and everything needs to be compared to a Birkin or a Kelly, but that's the kind of content that you guys know me for. And I do think that the Capucine really cannot be mentioned on the same page with any other Louis Vuitton bag, not the Neverfull, not the Alma, not the Speedy. As much as I love those creations, the Capucine is in its own tier, in its own league, but it's actually not the top tier of Louis Vuitton's bags. But the Capucine comes in quite a few different sizes. It features a single top handle, and you can either find it in a more structured or a more slouchy finish. It is probably best known for being available in buffalo leather, which is a really beautiful, hard-wearing grain skin. It comes in a mini, a BB, and an MM size. Those were the more traditional feminine sizes, but more recently it has been reinterpreted in a larger size, which is the GM size. It measures 38 centimeters, and it is a lot softer and a lot more slouchy, but it still features all the details that you might know and love the Capucine for. And I actually think that the GM size is a lot more appropriate for men. Not that you have to buy things from the men's collection or the women's collection. You can buy whatever piece brings you joy and whichever piece you feel works with your proportions. But I actually really like that now they have a more oversized take on this bag, because I have personally always found the Capucine just a little bit too feminine and delicate for my liking. But I actually really enjoy this GM size, which again measures 38 centimeters, but it still has that single top handle, that complex multi-layered structure, and the Louis Vuitton emblem on the front, which can actually be hidden. It's a detail that I really like about this bag. You don't have to show off the Louis Vuitton hardware on the front. It can be hidden with the flap of the bag. There is also a flap, but it is a really accessible bag, and you do have a zip closure in case safety is a concern for you. But I do love the Capucine, and I think it is a bag that deserves a lot more love and attention. And if you're looking for a great everyday workhorse bag, the fact that now the GM is available with a thicker, wider shoulder strap, I think it is perhaps a bag that you want to give another look. And then a bag that I was actually going to mention alongside their trunks, in case you love the idea of a trunk, but you're not quite ready to pull the trigger on one of those investment pieces just yet, or maybe you're looking for something that you can use on a more regular basis. Well, that's why the Petite Ma was born. It's a piece that was very closely inspired by the brand's trunk making heritage, and it is essentially a miniaturized wearable trunk that requires extremely precise construction and it features the same metal corners, the hinge closure, and the reinforced panels that the Louis Vuitton trunk is so well known for. It was designed in 2014 and I added this back to my collection many years later, I think in 2020. I think it is an incredibly special, beautifully crafted bag, but it is definitely not nearly as user-friendly as Louis Vuitton makes it out to be, because inherently it is hard shell. It is really, really hard to pack this bag. There are very few things you can fit into this bag because it really has no stretch. So you really have to negotiate for space and you have to be really strategic about how you stack your pieces in there. It's certainly not a bag that I would buy directly from Louis Vuitton because this bag at this point has virtually no resale value. So what I would suggest that you do, if you love a hard shell trunk bag, if you have a need for a more formal creation, there is no doubt it is quite glamorous, but I would certainly encourage you to look on the pre-loved market, and really most bags you can get pre-loved for a much better deal, except for the P9, which is the perfect segue into that new creation. So the Speedy P9 was a more exclusive top tier take on the iconic Speedy, which was introduced by Pharrell. It comes in several different sizes and it's exclusively available in store, usually reserved for Louis Vuitton's VIC. Now, I am no VIC by any means, but I was recently asked about getting one of these bags, which I'll make sure to put in some pictures of here. Louis Vuitton has a really interesting sort of sales strategy when it comes to this. It's not quite the same as getting a Birkin or a Kelly in that you do not have to buy specific pieces or build a long-term purchase history, but they don't make a lot of these bags. They are incredibly highly priced. They do come in several different sizes, so I think they start at a size 25 and they go up to a 50, and they are basically a blend of the Speedy and the Keepo, which you can even see in the little sort of clochettes that you get with these bags. They're made of Louis Vuitton's best quality leather. They are 100% leather lined. They only come in seasonal colors. Each seasonal color actually has a little animal emblem, which helps with authenticity and identifying which collection the particular piece and colorway you're getting is from. There is a metal plate inside the bags, which will be, once you buy one of these bags, it will be linked to your profile, which makes resale a little bit more challenging, I guess, and authentication a lot easier. And I'm trying to think what else you have to know about this bag. Well, the idea is that if you want to get your hands on one of these bags, you have to express your interest to your boutique. You have to be a valued client or someone who has been around the block when it comes to Louis Vuitton. Then they will try to find and source a bag for you. But before that even happens, I'm pretty sure you have to go in and pay 100% deposit. And once that deposit has been paid, that's when they'll try to source one of these bags for you. And you can be a little bit more picky with colors and sizes. It's not like, I mean, you can also be picky with Hermès, and you should be picky with Hermès. When you're spending so much money, you shouldn't be buying something just for the sake of it, but you do have a little bit more flexibility, and they will do seasonal colors and seasonal finishes. That is the idea behind the P9. Now, I have to be honest, I was quite tempted by this piece, especially when I was offered this in black on black, because it is a really unique creation. But personally, because I'm not a Louis Vuitton collector or a Louis Vuitton fan, I could not justify spending over $10,000 on one of these bags. Not to mention that size 50 was way too big for me. In fact, because this bag is made of this really supple, buttery leather, I feel like this bag would just end up looking like a puddle of leather on me. Well, at least that's what it looked like in the pictures and as me trying it on. So if you love the idea of this bag, but you do not want to go through the pain of trying to source one of them, and you do not want to spend tens of thousands of dollars on a P9, definitely look at getting a Speedy in leather, or try to get your hands on a Keepo in a smaller size. So for example, in a size 45, which is also available in leather. And I do think, yes, it's not going to be the same level of craftsmanship. They are still exquisitely made, and they are a lot more subtle and low-key, and because of that, timeless, because they don't feature that in-your-face Louis Vuitton monogram, which to me, the black on black is as soft as it gets. Even that to me was just a little bit too, I don't want to say obnoxious, but it was just a little bit too much for my personal aesthetic. And just when you thought that it couldn't possibly get any more exclusive, we still have to talk about the highest tier of craftsmanship when it comes to Louis Vuitton bags. Yes, the Capucines is in its own league, but if you're looking for even more exclusive creations, there are two offered by Louis Vuitton. One is the steamer bag, which I'm not going to talk about that much today, purely because I'm not a big fan of this shape. But the closest thing I could compare these two bags to, the steamer and the Rose de Vaughn, is the Birkin and the Kelly. I think they will add completely different facets to your collection. By no means am I saying that they are a dupe, but they are similar in that the steamer features two top handles. It's more of an open style tote, but it is certainly a lot more structured than a Birkin would be. And then you have the Rose de Vaughn, which is a little bit more delicate, a little bit more feminine. It has a similar trapeze shape to the Kelly. It has a similar flap detail, and also a single top handle. So I want to focus on the Rose de Vaughn bag in today's video, but pretty much everything I say about this bag also goes for the steamer. But the Rose de Vaughn is a bag that you will really not see that often. It at this point is exclusively available in exotic leather. In the past, it has been done in regular leathers too, but more often than not, you will see it in exotic leather, or at least with an exotic touch. And it is one of Louis Vuitton's most exclusive creations. These pieces are produced in extremely small quantities, sometimes even as a one-off limited edition piece for a single region. And they come in some of the most decadent finishes. Here I'm thinking things like ombre crocodile, metallic lizard, ostrich. They even have a Himalaya style faded bag, so that beautiful ombre effect that you get on Himalaya, Louis Vuitton also offers in this creation. Really just some of the most jaw-dropping, head-turning creations, finishes, and colors you've ever seen or can think of. And then the details that you'll notice on this bag is the heavy and really opulent use of hardware. You not only get that signature Louis Vuitton padlock, but also a key bell detail, as Louis Vuitton calls it. Now, when you look at this bag, you might think, oh, it might be a pain to open and close. But if you have a closer look at this bag, you'll actually notice that the padlock is not attached to the twist closure of the bag. You can, of course, attach it to the twist closure if you want to secure it, but it's not always attached to the twist closure, so it makes it easier to open and close. Although I would be a little careful with having that padlock on a really delicate bag, especially if your bag is made of matte gator or matte croc. That lock might leave a smile mark behind. If it's a bag that you own, I would love to know your experience with this particular creation in the comment section. And then a really interesting detail, you know, the devil is in the details. There is a reason these bags are so expensive. The hardware is actually in the shape of two motifs from the Louis Vuitton monogram, those being the quatrefoil and the fleur-de-lis motifs. And then, of course, you have the LV initials on the lock, which I really think makes this bag even more special. Now, this bag is not for the faint of heart, not only because they are quite hard to get your hands on, but also because of the price. I think these bags currently start at around $9,000. That's the price range for this bag in mini size in ostrich, and then really the sky's the limit. I think the bag that I saw yesterday in croc was just around 20,000 euros. So really these bags are for the true Louis Vuitton collector. But when it comes to craftsmanship, this is the creme de la creme. as far as Louis Vuitton is concerned. And I can't believe I almost forgot. I don't know how much of a consolation price this will be, but the Rose Devon bags also come in a hard shell display case, similar to the idea of the Hermès exceptional bags, which of course come in a jewelry box inspired hard shell trunk. Louis Vuitton, Rose Devon, and steamer bags come in their own display case, just in case that helps you justify spending tens of thousands of dollars on an exclusive Louis Vuitton creation. But this actually brings us to the end of today's video discussing the truth about Louis Vuitton. I really hope you enjoyed this video and you got something out of it. Let me know your thoughts and your experience with Louis Vuitton. Do you have a favorite or a least favorite piece? Is it a brand that you're still buying from? I would love to know everything you think about this brand. Let's turn the tables and make you the reviewer. I always love reading your feedback in the comment section. And if there are any other brands that you would like me to do a similar deep dive on, make sure to let me know in the comment section. But I really appreciate you being here and watching. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. And I will see you back here with a new video really, really soon.